We chant the four great Bodhisattva vows. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to help them all. Delusions are countless. We vow to see through them all. Opportunities to awaken are infinite. We vow to embrace them all. The Buddha way is endless. We vow to embody it. All right, so we'll start out with our customary 15 minutes of seated meditation. chant the Gatha on opening the sutras. This Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is rarely encountered, even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, hold and maintain it. May we completely realize the true mind of all Buddhas. And this evening, we have the distinct pleasure of having the Dharma talk given to us by Johnson Sunmin Miller.
Thank you, Vince, for having me or tolerating me giving a talk. And what I wanted to talk about here tonight was Bodhidharma's entry through practice. He describes in his outline of practice text. And this might take on, just given a discussion, some of this we're having here before we got started tonight, might have some more, a little bit more poignancy. And let's just say, I certainly don't intend this discussion of this practice as a dismissal of anybody's pain. And perhaps I'll weave back in here some ideas about grief and grieving and such things in the midst of these practices. Well, Bodhidharma's entry through practice is an important practice for me, or it's something that I've used to great benefit. And it includes 4 practices, which Red Pine translates as first, suffering injustice; second, adapting to conditions; 3, seeking nothing; and 4, practicing the Dharma. And hearing that, you might immediately be thinking like, oh, those just might correlate somehow to the 4 Noble Truths, with that there is dukkha, corresponding with suffering and justice, that dukkha has a cause, correlating with adapting to conditions, the means to cessation, correlating to the seeking nothing, and the Noble Eightfold Path as the means of cessation, correlating with practicing the Dharma. And I'm really going to focus on the first of these, suffering and justice, although at one point I'll tie in the other 3 very, very, very briefly. Well, I think thinking about what Bodhidharma is really getting at with that first practice, I think rather than suffering injustice, as Red Pine translates it, I think perhaps acceptance of karma or enduring one's karma might be a better way of describing or naming this. And so in this case, I think about what do we mean by karma here, and for Bodhidharma, the way he just described it there, he's thinking about karma in a very traditional way, where basically the bad things that are, or the unpleasant things that are happening to us, are the result of our past actions, whether in this life or another. But perhaps for me, a more useful way of thinking is karma is, in a sense, like a subset of dependent arising. Things arise because of certain conditions arise. And well, those things, the phenomena is those conditions arising. They're the same thing. And then things cease when that particular constellation of conditions cease. And so I think of karma as just how we experience that arising and ceasing, and those sets of conditions that are in some ways most personal to us, or help to constitute us as individuals. And so I want to give an example of me enduring karma here, that now, again, after earlier discussion, I hope doesn't sound too trite, but I wanted something concrete, but also not like over the top sort of horrible. And this is that every month I pay down my student loans a little bit. My student loans are my karma. And so why each month do I pay down a little bit of those? Well, because I took out loans to go to college. That's a condition involving a decision, probably an ill-informed one, perhaps even unwise, but nonetheless, it was there. But other conditions are things like being born into a working class family, that where college just wasn't going to be just paid for by my family, and being from a working class family in the United States, where two things: one, there's rather limited support for higher education compared to other wealthy countries where it's cheaper, but also the United States having a particularly, say, labor-intensive approach to higher education that in some ways makes it better than in a lot of wealthier countries, and also therefore more expensive. These are part of the conditions that are involved here. My father urging me to go to college instead of going to the mill like him, because partly tied to other conditions, you can see the interdependence of them here, things like deindustrialization of the 1970s and 80s. And so him anticipating that those mill jobs just would not be there for me, or I'd start off and then be laid off permanently quite quickly. Other conditions, I did not take high school particularly seriously, and I also am not a genius, and so there were no student loan scholarships helping me out there. And so here's a whole lot of conditions going on, such that I paid down my student loans every month. And so here's student loans as a concrete example of, or expression of, my karma. Okay, so then how do I suffer or accept my karma? I mean, one thing is just mindfulness. We can learn to, in a sense, choose how we react to things. And so I can choose not to react with despair, anxiety, or anger about these loans, and even choose to joyfully recognize the opportunity that it gave me, able to do something that most of my ancestors would have thought unimaginable. Talking about ancestors, they were farmers, mill workers, loggers, miners, bootleggers. I come from a very distinguished line of people, and so I mean, just I can imagine for many of my ancestors, I'm like the miracle of the family, going to college like that, and also being used lots of part of my accepting my karma is using skills and resources to make those payments manageable. So think about things like consolidating or reconsolidating loans, trying to wisely choose repayment plans, choosing or recognizing, having some humility and joy in recognizing that just the fact that I can pay them down, which not everybody can do. For some, suffering injustice is a much more sort of literal thing than my experience with my student loans. It's not something I need to get too upset about, whereas it's very damaging for other folks, and so I can have some gratitude for that. But suffering one's karma can also, it doesn't have to be a, well, whatever happens sort of thing. It could involve dealing with one's karma. Could also, in this regard, can mean things, like depending on your politics and ethics and so forth, can involve things like some people organize for student debt cancellation. Right? So actively engaging the conditions that lead to a person paying down their student loans every month. Or something I do is often promote less college, suggesting that people really think hard about going to college, and that a lot of people are doing jobs that don't need college education. So that doesn't really help out me, but one way of enduring my karma is helping other folks learn from I shouldn't say mistakes, but from my experiences. And this could be a rather lame example depending on what you got going on in your life. So if experiencing the loss, if people dying, you might think like, oh, okay, Bodhidharma is saying I need to accept my suffer injustice without complaining here. So of course, when someone dies who's especially if they're like close to you, to be like, okay, I'm going to feel nothing about this. I'll just remain totally tranquil. That's, I don't know, that sounds more like suppression than tranquility to me. Of course, we can make choices about how we respond to these sorts of things. And so rather than suffering one's karma in terms of how, that karma being experiencing loss, for me, I think wouldn't be, mindfully choosing to not experience the pain and the suffering of it. It would be being very mindful of the grieving and the pain and not adding to it, not holding on to the pain, or not forcing myself to feel a particular way in this loss, or to feel shame or about how I'm experiencing the loss, or if I'm not feeling a particular way, so not expecting myself to feel a particular way, or being aware of the suffering that other folks have going on in this, and perhaps may help to recognize opportunities for assisting others who are also going through the grieving for the loss of that person. And so depending on what the karma is that we're suffering or enduring, loss of friends or loved ones, or family in the hospital versus paying one's student loans, very, very different sorts of experiences, of course. And I'm not trying to make those comparable in terms of the level of pain, or to deny the very real pain of these losses. But this accepting this karma, it's not just, okay, well, whatever happens, happens, sort of thing. Now, for Bodhidharma, the way he talked about karma, again, it was, if you experience something terrible, well, it's your fault, basically, because you did something in the past, and now you're burning off that karmic debt as opposed to the student debt. And I think that can lead to some really unhealthy stuff. So imagine, think of a child experiencing abuse. How helpful would it be to be like, oh, well, no, that's good that you're experiencing that, because through that suffering and pain, you're burning off karma for really bad things you did in the past. Like, wow, you just made that kid's life a lot worse. And I think it's not just that, well, it's true, but you don't say it. I don't know. Frankly, I just think it's kind of a stupid idea. Not very helpful. The self-blame, the shame, the self-loathing that can come from that sort of thing. I think we think about karma in a broader way, again, as a subset of dependent arising, that, it's a whole bunch of conditions going on. Some of those conditions are our actions and decisions that we've made in the past or are making now, but it's also a whole bunch of other things going on. I was not involved in decision making about the family that I was born into. Thinking of how I came to these student loans. And so, but it's more about the mindfulness of our reactions to these conditions, making choices about how we respond to these, to our karma, or even to literal injustice. Karma isn't some iron cage we're bound into. It's a web, a network that we can, to some extent at least, extract ourselves from. It's not a passive thing. We can be actively engaged in our karma. We can loosen some of the knots. And so accepting karma for me is this first practice, the entry through practice, is more than just not complaining, which is just, of course, one small part of what Bodhidharma says there. But it can also mean, taking action, changing those conditions. And so violence a person might experience. So rather than oh, well, that's, your fault, burning off karma there. So, actively engaging, changing or ending those relationships in which that violence happens, for example, or engaging in political organizing can be part of engaging in one's karma. And of course, personal choices are, choices is part of it there. And so accepting their karma is also partly about accepting reality. And here's where I'm bringing in the other practices here. So accepting karma as accepting reality, adapting to conditions as mindfully choosing how to respond to that reality. Seeking nothing, the third practice, not tying ourselves up in more knots. as we experience our karma, and practicing the Dharma, directly seeing into the emptiness of that web of karma and of the self that partly constitutes that web, so that then we can act in the most beneficial way, both for ourselves and helping others, without reinforcing that self and tying up more knots. So, suffer injustice, endure or accept karma, see things as they are. So, I mean, these are these the first practice and the last practice. So, endure one's karma, see things as they are.
Thank you, Johnson. So we'll pick up with another 15 minutes of seated meditation. we'll chant the Heart Sutra. Mahaprajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when practicing deeply the Prajna Paramita, perceives that all five skandhas are empty and is saved from all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. That which is form is emptiness. That which is emptiness, form. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They do not appear or disappear, are not tainted or pure, do not increase or decrease. Therefore in emptiness, no form, no feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realm of eyes, and so forth, until no realm of mind consciousness, no ignorance, and also no extinction of it, and so forth, until no old age and death, and also no extinction of them, no suffering, no origination, no stopping, no path, no cognition, also no attainment, with nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva depends on Prajna Paramita, and the mind is no hindrance. Without any hindrance, no fears exist. Far apart from every perverted view, one dwells in nirvana. In the three worlds, all Buddhas depend on Prajna Paramita and attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore know that Prajna Paramita is the great transcendent mantra, is the great bright mantra, is the utmost mantra, is the supreme mantra, which is able to relieve all suffering and is true, not false. O proclaim the Prajna Paramita mantra, proclaim the mantra which says Gate Gate Para Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisvaha Gate Gate Para Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisvaha Gate Gate Para Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisvaha. And this sounds like it would be a good week to dedicate some merit. Seems like there's a lot of people that could stand a little merit. All sentient beings are one seamless body, pass quickly from birth to death. We remember those who cared for us and are gone, those who are ill, those who are at war, who are hungry and who are in pain. May they heal and have peace. We especially would like to dedicate our service to... Who would like to insert someone here? Say again, Johnson. Couldn't make it out.
Brother Hangdall.
The people of Sri Lanka. The people of Ukraine. The people of Syria. The people of Yemen. Anyone else would like to put someone in? All beings in the 10 directions, subject to the greed, hatred, and delusion of themselves and others. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Mahaprajnaparamita. Life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly by and opportunities to awaken are easily lost. Strive to realize your true nature and do not squander your time by night or day.